What's up? Welcome back to the Metalhead Car Show. This year, Iron Maiden will be heading back out on the road to both restart and finish their Future Past tour, which the Future Past tour has been a hybrid tour between the 1986 Somewhere in Time and the 2021 Senjutsu. What if this happened differently? But what if in an alternate timeline, we got to the Future Past tour and it was a different animal? So today, we're going to go over what the Future Past tour would have looked like in an alternate timeline. So, let's get right into it. I've said this line in multiple videos, but we're going to do it again. Going back to 2018, we had the Legacy of the Beast tour. It went into 2019, going into North America and South America. A very extensive leg of the Legacy of the Beast tour is scheduled for 2020, and it went off without a hitch. In this timeline, there was no pandemic, which goes to 2021, in which case we got the Senjutsu tour. The Senjutsu tour continues from 2021 into 2022, expanding the whole world, which brings us to 2023. And just like our 2023, we get the Future Past tour. But this time, it's different. You see, the Future Past tour happened the way it happened because Maiden didn't have time to give Senjutsu its full tour, which is why they've actually broken it up by like 8 songs so far between the last leg of the Legacy of the Beast tour and the Future Past tour. So those hoping for a Maiden Senjutsu tour, this is the Senjutsu tour. But in this alternate timeline, the Senjutsu tour happened. So this is still going to be a retrospective tour of Somewhere in Time, but also focusing on one other album that hasn't got love since it came out. So in 2010, Maiden did the first leg of the Final Frontier tour, focusing on Brave New World, Dance at Death, and A Matter of Life and Death. So we know that Somewhere in Time is going to be in this Future Past tour. All of the 1980s albums have had their retrospective tours or a lot of focus. A lot of the 2000s albums have had a lot of focus. And the Book of Souls album's a little bit too new. So this would be a hybrid tour between Somewhere in Time and the Final Frontier. The Somewhere in Space tour. I've heard the Metal Pilgrim talk about for the Final Frontier, saying the Final Frontier songs are great, but they couldn't really fit into a set with everything else really well. Which I would argue about that one, but that's beside the point. So this would be my speculation video on a tour that's never going to happen, but could have happened if things went a little bit differently. The Somewhere in Time, Final Frontier, Somewhere in Space tour, and as you've probably guessed, we're starting with a set list. So I think Maiden would still do some of the same things, picking the same Somewhere in Time songs. So in this, we're still going to be opening with Caught Somewhere in Time and going directly into Stranger in a Strange Land. If this is the timeline that has no pandemic, I think the tour would have happened a bit more naturally, but I do think a lot of the Somewhere in Time songs would be the exact same. Frankly, when I did my original setlist video for this Future Past tour, I picked my Somewhere in Time songs kind of just based off logic and reason. So I picked the obvious opening song being Caught Somewhere in Time, the song that they need to play otherwise fans are going to burn down the venue being Alexander the Great, the song they've been using in all the promo being Stranger in Strangeland, Wasted Years because let's face it makes sense, and Heaven Can Wait because it's the most played Somewhere in Time song. All of those are going to remain the same. So open with Caught Somewhere in Time, right into Stranger in Strangeland, and then El Dorado. El Dorado is both the main and first single from the Final Frontier album, and it was also the only Final Frontier song played in 2010. So it's going to be in the set. But after that, we're going to go into a Final Frontier song that wasn't played originally, and that is The Alchemist. Short, fun, high energy, shreddy Yannick solo, and again, never been played live. After that, going to something a bit more familiar and with Coming Home. Coming Home was the second single on the Final Frontier album. It's one that a lot of fans were really into, and it has this really cool vibe to it. It's not a ballad, but it's a lot more mellow. It's super easy to sing along to, and this is kind of one of those crime shame songs that Maiden really needs to pull back out at this point. But nonetheless, I think it would need to be in the set list. After something a bit more on the mellow side, like Coming Home, going into something a bit older, like The Trooper. The Trooper has a great spot in the set list of being this fast, higher energy song played after something a lot longer, which Coming Home isn't that long, but with the Trooper having the higher energy, it's going to work really well. And keeping the energy up, going to a song that I originally predicted would be in the Future Past tour, but Future Real. Not just I was wrong, but I made an entire video talking about why I believe Future Real was going to be in the set list. Got way too many views for how wrong it was. But since this is a completely hypothetical tour, I'm putting it in. Song 8, we're going to be going something a bit longer, one of the Yannick songs, and we're going to be going with The Talisman. I think The Talisman is one of the best post-reunion songs Maiden's done, period. And it's just such a cool song live. Again, it needs to come back. After The Talisman, taking a cue from the current set list, and that is Can I Play With Madness? It's short, it's fun, it's a single, fans are into it, it'll be a good break in between two longer songs. Next two songs, again, pulling them directly from the current set list, and that is Heaven Can Wait going into Alexander the Great. I'm taking a lot of the cues from the current set list purely because, despite this would be a different tour, it's a tour under the same idea happening at the same time, so it's pretty likely it would kind of be laid out the same way, just a slightly different theme. So Heaven Can Wait, Alexander the Great, drop Fear the Dark and replace it with Phantom of the Opera. Phantom of the Opera was one of these songs that a lot of fans were really hoping would be in the Future Past tour, I think purely because it was played in the Summer in Time tour, and we haven't heard it since 2014. But we go Phantom of the Opera right into Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden's been in every set list. It's going to be in every set list till the last show they do. It's Iron Maiden. And this is when we get into the encore. I took some of the same cues as the current set list, but just altered them a little bit. So instead of opening the encore off with Hell on Earth, we open it up with When the Wild Winds Blow. Such a beautiful song, such a cool song, truly doesn't get the appreciation it truly deserves, and really needs to make a comeback. After that, we go into one more weird song before we wrap things up, and this song I think is kind of in the same vein as Future Real, and that is Out of the Silent Planet.
Out of the silent planet, dreams of desolation. Out of the silent planet.
That song's been played just a handful of times. It's a single from the Brave New World album, and it truly needs to come back. I think this would be a great tour to bring it back on, just if it was real. And to close the show off, same thing as they're currently doing, and that is Wasted Years. So just for a little recap, my set list would be Caught Summer in Time, Stranger to Strangeland, El Dorado, The Alchemist, Coming Home, The Trooper, Future Real, The Talisman, Can I Play With Madness, Heaven Can Wait, Alexander the Great, Phantom of the Opera, Iron Maiden, encore of When the Wild Winds Blow, Out of the Silent Planet, Wasted Years. I think this would be an absolute blast. You're going with the 5 cyborg, 5 alien theme, and this mythical tour would be a great way to pull out the Final Frontier album. The stage would be an interesting one because I do actually really like the stage they're currently using, but I don't know if I would want that for this tour. You need to find a cross between the current stage, which is like the Satellite 15, but along with that, you need to find ways to incorporate the Summer in Time album. And to do that, I would take some themes from the current Future Past tour and make the stage this time machine. Yes, the time machine isn't in my set, but I think for a theme it would work really well for these two albums. The time machine could look like whatever Iron Maiden wanted to, along with looking like the spaceship, which would kind of also work for both albums. For this tour, I would incorporate 3 Eddies, 2 mobile, 1 immobile. I do the same thing as the current tour, and that is have the Stranger to Strangeland Eddie on stage during Stranger to Strangeland. When you get to Alexander the Great, I would actually have an Alexander the Great Eddie on stage with him in the full Alexander the Great armor, bloody sword, the whole thing. And during Iron Maiden, this is where I would use the immobile Eddie, and that is use the Final Frontier Eddie that was used in the backdrop during the 2011 Final Frontier tour. Frankly, I thought this Eddie was like the coolest looking stage Eddie Maiden's ever used, and again, I really want to see this album and that Eddie come back in the future. Would it work? Honestly, I think it would. Right now, the Future Past tour is actually doing really well ticket-wise. We're seeing so many arena shows completely flop right now due to bad promotion, ego, touring schedules, a lot of bands getting back on the road after COVID, and we're seeing a lot of issues right now. Maiden's not really having that, and that's a great sign. I don't really think it's a hard sell when it comes to a retrospective tour and they're going back on these old albums, but with this current one, which again is selling very well, we are not just doing a Summer in Time tour, we're also doing a Senjutsu tour. This is a new album tour. So if you do Somewhere in Time, but along with Final Frontier, which is an album that fans haven't really got to hear for a while, especially in North America, I think it would do well. But alas, this is all speculation on a tour from a different timeline. But I want to know, what do you think? Is this a tour you would want to see happen? And if so, what would your set list look like? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and enjoy what you've seen. I post on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, and I'll see you later.